All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, my name is Elizabeth Akers Moore, Chair of the Concord Zoning Board of Appeals, and I'm calling this public meeting to order at 7:04 p.m. in accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order of March 12, 2020, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. We are conducting this meeting virtually. This meeting is being recorded. Following the presentation by the applicant, for which I will allow the town planner or the applicant to share the screen if they wish to make their own presentation, the board will ask questions of the applicant. Following this, I will ask for public comment. Consistent with the Select Board's temporary policy directive and guidelines for public meeting and public hearings conducted via remote participation due to COVID-19 state of emergency, the public is invited to view the meeting as an attendee only and will not be permitted video access. If an attendee has a question during the public comment period for each application, they can use the question and answer function. And I'm sorry, Heather, remind me, if they're calling an audio, they press *9.
They are press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute and unmute.
Okay, so if you're joining us over the telephone, otherwise you can use the raise hand function, and you will be unmuted, one attendee at a time, so you can ask your question. Questions will be answered to the extent possible. All video screens will be turned off with the exception of the board, town planner, and the current applicant. Once the board has acted on an application, the applicant will be returned to an attendee and is free to leave the meeting. At this time, I would ask for a roll call vote of the board members. Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Faia.
Here.
Ms. Akers Moore, I'm here. All right, I think that's all. We can go ahead and get started. Our first hearing, Commons in Newbury LLP. This applicant has requested to continue the application. Straightforward. This is the second continuance they're asking for, I think. So until December, they want, okay. So if I can get a motion to continue that December 17th at 7, Heather? There's nothing for that, okay.
So I'd move that we continue the application of Commons and Newbury LLP for special permit under section 7.1.3, 7.1.5, and 11.6 of the zoning bylaw to demolish the second story of an existing dwelling and convert it to an accessory structure and construct a new dwelling that is 50% larger than the existing gross floor area at 18 Windmill Hill Road. And continue it to December 17th at 7 o'clock.
Yep, second.
All in favor, Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Faia?
Aye.
Ms. Akers Moore? Aye.
Can I ask the town planner a quick question on this?
Well, so first off, your motion was to continue it to it's December 12th.
Oh, we have December 17th written down.
This December 17th on our.
It's the 17th. It's the 17th?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was the 12th.
No, it's
okay. And you had a question about this, about.
Yeah, I'm curious because I read this before I saw the notice that they were requesting a continuance, and it seemed like it was pretty complete. So I was just curious, and if we had a sense of why they were asking for a continuance. But
so they're requesting a continuance because they are going to amend their application to include the additional dwelling unit under 4.2.2.2.
Got it.
Which was not part of their original application, was not part of the legal notice or notification to abutters. So we requested that they submit a letter amending their application to include that section. Heather will be refiling the legal notice and notification to abutters.
Great, thank you.
all right, great. Moving on, 7:05, Concord Country Club. Yet again, a continuance. What number are we on this one?
Heather, is it the second or? I think this is the second or third continuance.
Probably the third.
Yeah, I would think the third.
Third.
So once again, the request is a continuance for 1 month, and yet I have not seen any indication, but perhaps you have, Elizabeth, that they've actually submitted an application that might be consistent with the Groundwater Conservancy District regulations.
They are still attempting to develop a project that meets the zoning bylaw requirements, and have yet to satisfy the issues and concerns raised by town staff.
And secondly, we had a person sending in a letter asking, I think, a very interesting question, which is, what about, we've sort of held off as a town with any enforcement or other actions with respect to the removal of earth that I think they've conceded was outside the requirements. Any movement on that? Any thoughts on that by the town?
So our understanding was, I mean, so long as they submitted the application and they're attempting to rectify that issue, there's really no point in having them go through and restore an area that's going to be dug up for this project, should it be approved. But I think it's entirely within the board's purview. If you wish to entertain this continuance, to direct staff to inform them that this will be the last continuance, and that they need to move forward with addressing the town staff's concern and move forward with the project on December 17th, or again, withdraw and resubmit when they're ready.
Well, and by withdrawing, do they then submit themselves to what Jim was saying, to more enforcement of restoration or?
Yes.
Okay.
At that point, they would be required to restore those areas.
So I'm comfortable with that being part of our continuance if Jim and Robbie are.
Yeah, I think it's time. I mean, it's one thing to continue because there's things that are being worked out. We're waiting for an actual plan that meets the law, which seems to me to be, kind of a basic here. So I'd move that we continue until December 17th at 7:05 p.m. The application of the Concord Country Club for a special permit under sections 7.5 and 11.6 of the zoning bylaw for construction of an irrigation pond, requiring the removal of some 19,000 cubic yards of soil at 246 Old Road to 9 Acre Corner. Noting that that this is the last time that the board is inclined to grant a continuance of this application, and that we would expect the applicant to either move forward or to withdraw until they're ready to.
Yeah, I'll second, but just to clarify, if they do submit the application by the 17th of December, and then we are working on substantive issues that require further continuance, what we're talking about is this is the last time we're continuing it without any kind of progress on getting to that initial application, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Second.
Great. Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Faya,
Aye.
Chris Moore, aye. Great. Okay. Moving on, 7:10, Martina Ladd for a special permit. Is Martina? Oh, yep. Hi, Martina. You are muted, so if you want to, can you unmute yourself now, or just, yeah, perfect.
Yep.
Great. If you want to go ahead and present, that would be great.
I think Elise, our architect, was going to present.
Hi,
Is
Elise.
she on?
She is.
Yes, hi. Hi, how are you doing?
Good. That's great. I think you can go ahead.
Go ahead, okay. So 131 Hubbard Street is, it's a house, and there's a detached garage on the property. And the house was built in 1890, the garage later on. The garage also has an unfinished loft. And this project is probably one of the first coming forward of the 4.2.2.2.2, I believe. And so what we're asking for is to put an apartment in the loft space. Right now, we're not going to change the roof line. There's no added foundation. There's a little greenhouse off the back that will be removed and a deck will be added. So right now, the existing garage and unfinished loft space are 1,516 square feet. And the new garage space will remain, and that will be 540 square feet. And the new apartment will be 976 square feet. So basically, the house and the garage are completely conforming to all the setbacks, to the square footage, to the FAR. You know, so and none of that is changing. We're not adding square footage and we're not changing any of the setbacks. So it's you know, just adding the apartment of under 1,000 square feet.
So Elise, I can bring up the plans if the board wants to have you go through the plans.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah, so if you see the elevations from the front and really the side, the elevations.
Yep, hang on 1 minute.
Yep.
So this sheet shows the front elevation, which doesn't change, except we're adding a little side portico on the left that you see. But the front of what you see, the doors, the window has been replaced, but in the same location. The cupola, that's all there. On the side, the existing door is down there. To the right is there. The windows on the top have just been replaced, but we're there. And so we've added a new door that goes into the side. So there is a room down below with a full bathroom. And then you see the stairs going up to the second floor. And the second floor, next sheet. So the second floor, it comes up, you have a kitchen, sitting area, a bedroom, and then another bathroom, stackable washer dryer. So it's the back elevation, which you see on the right, obviously has changed. We've taken a greenhouse off, and those are new windows and a new door and a new deck on the back. And then on the right side elevation, there's new windows there as well to go into the bathroom and the kitchen. But what you see, the shed dormer and the roof is exactly what's there now. The siding has stayed the same as well.
okay, great, thank you.
Then if the board wants, I can bring up the site
yeah,
plan,
yeah,
just so you can.
right. See the site plan. Yeah, so we've shown the new turnaround is done there for 2 parking spaces, and there's 2 parking spaces that are in the garage. So for a total of 4 parking spaces. So in just this project, the owner, Martina Ladd, is the owner of the house, and it's her mother who's going to be residing in the carriage house.
Okay,
So Liz, Elizabeth, if you don't mind, my question for Ray, and so there's 2 parking spaces in the garage. Typically, we also allow 1 parking space outside the garage, or in this case, 2 parking spaces outside the garage for a total of 4, so that you don't need to pave this area.
Right, that's how we've always done it in the past.
So I think that would, at least to me, that would be preferable, but I don't know if that's what the applicant.
Well, that's actually already done. They already changed the driveway.
Oh, they did. Oh, that's too bad.
They wanted to be able to pull in and go in the front door. So
Okay.
it was partially that. And also it is very awkward. I mean, having been there a few times, you're kind of changing cars around a lot. So this way you're pulled in and you don't have to worry about, because there's 3 cars now, you know, for Martina, her husband and her mom. So.
Okay. Elizabeth, anything else? Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask Elizabeth, just almost for the record, if we can sort of review the standards that are now applicable with respect to these, just the highlights. We kind of like to just start to have that on the record so that we know we're thinking about those issues.
So you mean going through the amended 422?
Yeah.
Before we do that, can I make one point?
Sure.
So when I reviewed this with Elise a few weeks back and in rereading this bylaw, so the detached structure meets setbacks for zoning for a detached structure that's completely behind the house. So it can be as close as 5 feet to the side setback. This is 6.4 feet. And this new Article 32 says it has to meet setbacks for a primary structure, or that's also part of the special permit. So they're here for a special permit for being more than 750 square feet. And also the setback, like I said, I didn't know, this is a new bylaw, so I didn't realize that when I was talking to Elise a while back.
Oh, okay.
But as we go through this, you're going to see, so I was going to bring that up tonight.
Okay, good. That's good to know, actually. Okay. So it has to meet the 15-foot setback is what you're saying.
Right.
Yes, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
that's on section G in that
Right.
bylaw. But now
Tim,
we
do
can
you
go
wanna
through the
just
whole thing.
literally go through each of these then? Or
That's
did you
good.
want Elizabeth to call out things she wanted to
Well, I
emphasize?
think it's just, I think, again, I'm trying to do this for the record more than anything else, but to Elizabeth, if you could maybe call out a few things that, or Ray, call out some things that you'd emphasize in this. And then if we want to go through it, I'm happy to do that. But again, I'm just trying to set the stage for.
Sure. So I think what Ray, you just said was 2 big ones there.
Right, and I don't have that bylaw in front of me. I just had that from memory from reviewing this
Yeah,
in the office.
It says, so this is 4.2.2.2 G. The additional dwelling unit shall meet the required setbacks for the primary structure of the applicable zoning district and site plan. And at a site plan. Okay. So that's what you were saying. It has to
Right.
meet the setbacks of the primary structure, this case being 15 feet, even though it met originally the applicable standard setback for the detached.
Right.
So,
Yep, go ahead.
so the bylaw includes a relief provision. The board may grant a special permit for relief for an additional dwelling unit located on a lot with less than the required minimum lot size for the applicable zoning district, and or an additional dwelling unit up to 1,000 gross square feet, and or a reduction in the required setbacks for a detached additional dwelling unit, provided that the desired relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the neighborhood and without degrading from the intent and purpose of this bylaw.
I think you said 2,000, but it's 1,000.
I said up to 1,000.
I thought you said up to.
Up to 1,000, yeah.
Oh, up to 1,000. Sorry, I didn't hear you correctly. Right. So those are the 2 things you just called out, Ray,
Right.
that they should, in addition to the up to 1,000 square feet, it should be for the special permit for the setback to be waived for the detached. So it would be, sorry, it would be to 6 feet, you said, to the side.
Right, 6'4", I believe.
And just to clarify, this has the minimum, does this meet the minimum lot size or not?
Yeah, it's a conforming lot,
Yeah.
you know, lot size, frontage.
The only other requirement is that it has to meet the maximum floor area ratio requirement.
And it does.
And
And
Yeah.
sewer, they've already got sewer approval from the sewer department to tie in.
And
89, 82 is the maximum.
Yes,
And-
exactly. And we have 5988.
yeah, technically they only needed 1 parking spot, but we already addressed that one. And That would be it.
Good, thank you.
Uh,
And to put everyone through it, I literally wanted to get on the record.
yeah, no, I think it's helpful. Ravi, did you have any other comments?
My apologies, I don't seem to be able to find anything beyond the April 2019 bylaw, but I assume the provision about minimum exterior alteration is still in there.
Minimum
I don't believe so, Rob, because you can build these from scratch now.
Okay,
So for the purpose of providing small additional dwelling units to rent in the town that will not substantially alter the appearance of the town, or for the purpose of enabling owners of a single family dwelling larger than required for the present need to share space and the burdens of home ownership. So there
yes,
is,
the old board two had a subsection that said no more than minimum exterior alterations shall be made. I didn't know if that survives.
that is no longer in there. Since people
That
keep
I'm good.
building new. So what was removed
Yeah.
was that provision about minimal exterior alterations. That additional dwelling unit actually has to be structurally part of the single family dwelling. Also, the 2-year minimum, if you want to include an additional dwelling in your single family dwelling, you had to wait 2 years after the house was built. So those were 3 primary items that got removed with the new bylaw.
Any other comments for the board before I open it up? Okay, I'll go ahead and open up to public comment. If anyone, you can press your raise hand button or *9 if you're on the phone. Anything, Heather?
Nope.
Nope. Great. Go ahead and close public comment. I have no issues with this. I think it's a great use of this revised bylaw. Any other comments or?
Yeah, I would agree. I'd also just note for the record that we did receive, I mean, it is noted in the record anyway, but we received comments from, I believe, sort of almost immediately abutting neighbors. I don't remember the addresses at the moment, but obviously there was good support from those neighbors that chose to put in a comment, but it's an excellent use. Doesn't really change, obviously doesn't change the character of the land or the character of the neighborhood in any way, shape or form. So.
Great. And I get a motion.
Yeah, so Elizabeth Hughes, can you remind me of the magic words about at the end of that special permit? It's
Sure. So it would be move to grant the special permit, I think it's 151 Hubbard Street, for an additional dwelling unit under section 4.2.2.2. And the board grants relief to allow the reduction in the required setback for the detached additional dwelling unit because it does not, the desired relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the neighborhood and without degrading from the intent and purpose of the bylaw, noting that the proposed project does not change the character of the land or the neighborhood, support from the abutting neighbors.
And I think the other thing, I'm going to adopt that in a second, but I think the other thing is it's 900 and some square feet, right? So no.
Right, so the 1,000 square
Oh,
foot.
and to allow an additional dwelling unit over 750 square feet, but less than 1,000.
Right. So moved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, wait, we're not done yet. We haven't voted. Ravi,
second,
second? Okay. Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Faya,
aye.
Ms.
Ms. Akers-Moore, aye. Okay, now we're finished.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sorry
Okay.
about that. Yep.
Have a good night.
Yeah, good night. Thanks. Bye.
All right, 7:15, 13B Commonwealth Avenue. Patrick Cleary, are you here?
I saw him earlier.
I am.
Hi. Do you want to kind of just, Elizabeth, does it make sense for you to kind of catch us up what happened last night first, or do you want to have the applicant present first?
No, I can, so Patrick did present to he's presented to the West Concord Advisory Committee, and Tuesday night to the planning board. The planning board unanimously was in support of the project, but will not be able to review their written recommendation and conditions until their meeting on November 24th, but wanted the board to know that they were unanimously in support of the project. The work that Patrick did over the last 2 years with the West Concord Advisory Committee, with amending the originally approved project, which was just a single-story commercial building, to adding a residential component on the second and third floor, as well as some significant changes in the overall architecture of the building. He also went to the West Concord Junction Cultural District, and they provided their input and support for the design of the project.
Great. So Patrick, I don't think we'll make you go through the whole 2-year, whatever you had to do yet last night. We won't make you redo it again. So maybe if you want to just present the current application, if we have questions about the history, we'll let you know.
Right, just before you do that, Elizabeth, just Elizabeth Hughes. So procedurally, at the end of all of this, we may go ahead and close the public hearing and not reopen it, but our decision itself can't be made until the next meeting, right after we've received the report.
I would probably suggest that you not close the public comment period, just because you'll be getting the planning board's written recommendation. And if the board wants to have, a conversation with the applicant about any of the conditions of approval or those items, or if somebody in the public has a question regarding some of the conditions of approval, you can still have that dialogue. But yes, tonight you would be continuing the application to the December 17th meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Would it be all right if I were to share my screen?
Yeah, that's fine.
Great. So what I would say is I put together a short summary of the project. And if at any time during the course of my summary, you'd like me to kind of step aside and open it up for questions, I'd be happy to do so. So feel free to interrupt and tell me that some of this is not necessary. Let me bring this up here. Is this visible?
It is.
Wonderful. So once again, my name is Patrick Cleary, and I'm here to talk to you today about 13B Commonwealth Avenue in West Concord Village. I am seeking an amendment to the special permit and site plan approval that was granted in 2013 after 3 years of review for the Brookside Square project in West Concord Village. Brookside Square was approved as 2 buildings. You can see the first building, which is located at 50 Beharrell Street at the top of the aerial with the white roof. This is a mixed-use building that was approved in 2013, and construction was completed in 2015. I imagine many of you might be familiar with it. The second building was proposed to be located at 13B Commonwealth Ave in this location. This part of the project was all important because it enabled a connection to be made through 50 Beharrell Street from the back of the commuter rail to a location on Commonwealth Ave much farther away from what had been the only way in and out of the commuter rail station, and which was seen by many as dangerously close to the tracks. Looking at the actual plan that was approved in 2013, you can see that 13B had a building contemplated to be built right up on the street. And zooming in on that property, the building was shown here to be 6,750 square feet, and it had 27 parking spaces accompanying it for a parking ratio of 1 space per 250 square feet. So as part of this approval, but before we could pull a building permit, we were required to bring the architectural design of the building back to the planning board for sign off, but only after working with and getting buy-in from the West Concord Advisory Committee. It took some time to get Brookside Square's commercial space to the point where we felt comfortable adding more commercial space to the project in general. But in 2017, we turned our attention to the design of 13B with the goal of pulling a building permit soon thereafter. Our design for this one-story retail building, unfortunately for us, was rejected soundly by the West Concord Advisory Committee. And what followed was actually 3 years of multiple designs and redesigns and multiple meetings with not only the West Concord Advisory Committee, but also the more recently formed West Concord Junction Cultural District Committee. We've been working with both of these groups very closely to come to a design that has, in most recent months, garnered enthusiastic support. And this is the building that we have been working on for so long. It is a 3-story mixed-use building with 5,250 square feet of retail and commercial space on the first floor and 8 residential units spread between the second and third floors. The rendering you're looking at is of the south side of the building with a view as if you were traveling out of the village. Because the building is approximately 130 feet of frontage along Commonwealth Ave, we've tried to break the facade up and make it look like 2 buildings. We do this by bumping the building, the east side of the building back 5 feet, as well as changing the color of the east and west sides of the building. But this property, in terms of its location, is very important within the village, as it is the last thing that people see as they're leaving the village. And it's also the first thing people see as they come into the village. And we've made really every effort to make sure that each facade of the building has special features and are of equal quality. This is the view as you come in of the west side of the building, which we see as a gateway into the village. And as the Cultural District Committee stated, it really needed to be a worthy statement to visitors as they come in. As such, we've tried to create a number of special details for this facade based on a lot of input from these 2 committees. Focusing in on the ground floor, we have found inspiration for this facade from the new Concord Market building. We love the large picture window that they've built there, which is flanked by 2 doors with awnings that cover them. There have also been recent efforts to publicize the branding for West Concord to the more historic Concord Junction. We love the sign in the Woods Hill Table Bar, or above the Woods Hill Table Bar, that signals West Concord, and thought we would give a nod to this with a sign signaling an entrance into the new district, or the district with the new moniker, and creating what the design guidelines refer to as a signature architectural moment. Now, I can stop here if people would like. I thought I could also give a very quick summary of the backstory of this design and where it came out of, which came from feedback and input from the West Concord Junction Cultural District. So if people want to hear that, fantastic. If people are satisfied and would like me to move on, no sweat.
I mean, I'm of 2 minds. I would like to hear it in theory, but I think for our purposes tonight, we're probably okay. unless Ravi or Jim, you disagree.
Well, is this backstory a 2-minute backstory, a 10-minute backstory?
It could be a 2-minute backstory.
How about a 2 to 5 minute backstory? That'd be great.
Sure. So when we went back to the West Concord Junction Cultural District Committee, after 2 years of redesigns, with our latest redesign at that time, we were met with very strong criticism for that design. We were told at that time that we were displaying not enough respect or regard for the cultural heritage and architectural traditions of the village. And at that meeting, a postcard was handed out of a scene in West Concord that was taken, a picture was taken during the early 1900s with a view down Commonwealth Avenue towards our site. In the foreground of that picture is a building that no longer exists. It's the Association Hall building. And it was asked of me at that meeting that night, why can't you build something like this? It is a uniquely West Concord building that is worthy of the newly bestowed cultural district moniker that had just been granted by the state for West Concord Village. The fact is, I knew that building, and I had admired a picture of that building that hung on the wall of Nick and John Boynton's office when I first met them years ago. And I thought that building was one of the more spectacular buildings that I have seen, and I started researching it. What I found was that it was built in 1890, and it housed the Concord Shakespeare Club as a performance hall, as well as a venue for community dances. But it tragically burned down in 1903. It was rebuilt in 1904. And as you know, today it's the Saltbox Kitchen building. And as beautiful as that building is, I've always thought it was a tragic loss to the village. So I came back to my architects with the directive to design a modern interpretation of this building. And what you see now is the result of over a year of honing this design to try to match the uniqueness of the Association Hall building from the turn of the century.
I'm glad you told that. That was a cool story. Thanks.
Very cool.
Good, Jim. Thank you for pushing that.
And then again, there, as people who have seen my my earlier presentation, there's a lot more detail. If anyone has questions about specific features of the architectural elements, I'm happy to go into those as well. But I want to be respectful of people's time, so I'm happy to answer any questions that that have come up.
Okay, great. I'm very mindful of the fact that this is not just coming to us without a lot of consideration from the other boards. And having read Elizabeth's report, it seems all very well thought out to me. Are there specific questions from Robbie and Jim?
I think the only one was in Elizabeth's report. There was, I guess, toward the end of the report, there was sort of a reference, and I'm not finding it right now, but so some kind of words of sort of discussion with the applicant with respect to some of the considerations that have been raised by the West Concord Advisory Committee, and I take it that that may have happened and may have happened in connection with the planning board meeting. So I'm just trying to get a little bit of an update from either Elizabeth or the applicant here as to that progress.
So those were, and that's part of the other part of the reason for the board's continuance. The planning board specifically did discuss that with the applicant, and I can quickly go through and tell you some of the outstanding items that were in my report that were resolved last night. The board did discuss. What was that?
Yeah, that would be helpful. I was going to say.
The board did, planning board did specifically talk about the affordable units, and there will be a condition The two affordable units will be at 80% area median income, and they will count towards the town's subsidized housing inventory. The condition will specifically be that one affordable unit be on the second floor, another affordable unit be on the third floor, and that there be one 2-bedroom and one 3-bedroom. But intentionally left it that way and not actually designating which unit it will be, because the applicant will work with our regional housing service offices and the Department of Housing and Community Development on, selecting, which apartment, they feel works best as far as being the affordable unit. When they got to the comments from the West Concord Advisory Committee, the comment about the building being all electric was discussed in a little bit more detail. And it comes down to none of us that were at the meeting, whether it's Patrick, myself, or any of the board members, have a substantial and detailed knowledge enough to tell you, while the planning board and the Board of Appeals for the Chase Bank project, the Chase Bank project said, yes, we'll go all electric. That's a single-story commercial building. And that's completely different than a building of this size, where it's commercial on the first floor, residential on the second and third floor. So during these 2 weeks, Patrick will go back to his team and look into whether that is a possibility for the building to go all electric. There will be a condition regarding that prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant will submit detailed architectural plans that specifically call out all of the architectural details and the materials for review by me. And then the board did have a conversation about their comment on public art and being allowed on the property. And there is the one green space that's on the northwest side of the building as you come down Commonwealth Ave and take that right turn at Kenny Dunn Square. And Patrick did indicate that yes, they like to work with West Concord and providing that space for different things, or maybe in some interpretive signage about the West Concord Junction as you're coming in, but to really allow that flexibility for that to happen, and not try to program it right now in a condition, because we kind of don't know what that's going to mean, but that the applicant is willing to work with the West Concord Advisory Committee on exploring options for public art. There was a lengthy conversation about EV charging stations, and having EV charging stations in the parking lot and how that would work. There have been some issues with EV charging stations at Brookside Square, and people, coming in who don't live there, don't work there, aren't visiting the shops, and just basically plugging in for a free charge. So again, in these next 2 weeks, Patrick will go back and look at, whether that is if that's a possibility, for this open parking lot. While it is in the commercial district, it is still basically a private parking lot. So, he commented that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick, or any of this, but go back and look at that, and whether that's a viable option for this site. And the board had a conversation about the request for the tandem parking spaces, where the planning board has been in support of, and the Board of Appeals has granted, special permits that have allowed tandem parking spaces. Right next door is Neshoba Bakery, and they received a permit from the board to allow tandem spaces where the 2 spaces were assigned to the same tenant. And the board talked with Patrick about the option of those tandem spaces could be 2 spaces for either a residential apartment, so long as it's these 2 spaces for an apartment, or 2 spaces for a tenant. So drafting a condition that would allow that flexibility, that either those tandem spaces will be assigned to only 2 residential units or 2 commercial tenants. And let me see. I did get, Patrick sent additional information to address the community safety officer's comment about the site distance. And I sent that along to him today, and he feels that the site distance is adequate and that is no longer an issue. Then the board did have a conversation about landscaping, and Patrick can fill you in on some of the conversations he had with the West Concord Advisory Committee or the West Concord Junction Cultural District. But in the end, the board was fine with those areas around the building not being fully landscaped areas, allowing the grass areas to be maintained for 2 reasons. One, it does allow for that outdoor space that we currently are all looking for during the pandemic, but also it provides available snow storage areas. And I think that was it. Any questions?
Uh,
Good summary. Thank you.
yeah.
So there's, I guess I just to make sure I'm understanding. So because I don't think I had this quite understood at the beginning, which is that the planning board, the next planning board meeting is not merely sort of a ability to review a written report, but actually there will be, or there's potential for some substantive changes between now and when that is, and then that's what we'll see on our December 17th, however that comes out.
Oh, there won't be substantive changes to the site plan or the architecture, no.
No, I know.
The only
Some
other,
of these conditions that you're talking about, whether it's all electric or not, or some of that.
yes, there may be additional conditions.
Right.
And or if Patrick's team comes back and says, yeah, all electric is a viable option for a building of this use, then that would just be incorporated into the project description and included as a condition similar to what Chase Bank did.
Got it.
But from a site plan or architectural standpoint, no, there'll be no revisions. Patrick, just prior to the planning board meeting, did submit a revised lighting plan. And that was one of my initial issues and concerns. And the revised lighting plan and the revised fixtures that they have chosen are a significant improvement.
And did they work out the spandrel glass issue?
Yeah.
So that goes back to the conversation they had about making sure that all of the architectural details were shown, specifically shown on the plans and the elevations, so that they're very specific, detailed, and included, so that there would be no issue with something not being constructed to what everybody considered when they were reviewing it.
And you have final sign off on saying whether that.
Correct.
Okay. I gotta say, I do not understand how this tandem parking is gonna work if it's owned by, if two people don't, in a unit, don't have two parking spaces, one in front of the other.
And Patrick can tell me the numbers. Some of the tenants will be assigned 2 parking spaces and some of the tenants will be assigned 1 parking space. So
Okay,
it will only be a tenant that is assigned 2 parking spaces will be assigned those tandem spaces, or it will be, 1 commercial tenant, or maybe, 2 smaller commercial tenants that only need 2 spaces for employees would be assigned those spaces. So they will either be assigned specifically to 2 residential units or specifically for 2 employees in 1 and 2 commercial spaces.
Correct.
got it. Questions? Any more questions from the board? Nope. Okay, we'll go ahead and open up to public comment. I see Matt Johnson raising his hand, so hi, Matt.
I just wanted to say that I think this is a fantastic project, and it is also just a great vote of confidence in West Concord Village. It's really well in line with the master plan, and I guess I'm speaking as former liaison, the planning board liaison to the West Concord Advisory Committee. So I actually attended all of the previous design reviews that took place. And, I know that it was a long and laborious process, but it has led to a really, fantastic result, I think. So I just wanted to applaud the applicant for bearing through it and getting to a really excellent place. So
Great.
just stating that as an individual, I am a member of the planning board, but speaking for myself, Matt Johnson, 21 Winthrop Street.
Perfect. That's what I was going to say. We need your address. All right. Great. Thanks, Matt. Anyone else?
Except he said he was a member of the planning board, speaking for himself. I don't.
Right.
No, I
Select.
was a former
Think
planning board liaison to the West Concord Advisory Committee.
Any other comments? All right. So I'm not going to close the public comments because we're going to come back to this.
Well, I think Pamela.
Oh,
are
Pam, are you trying to talk?
Are you raising your hand, Pam? Yeah,
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Pam.
It's hard to see on Zoom sometimes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I did not see that. I'm looking at all these squares. Hi, sorry. Go ahead.
Pamela Dritt, 13 Concord Green. Thanks. I really think that's a beautiful building,
Thank you.
Mr. Cleary. And I do hope that you have a chance to contact Northeast Sustainable Energy Association, because it has exactly the kind of pros sharing information with each other that could help you recognize the benefits of the all-electric solution there. Particularly the financial benefits to you as a builder, and all the environmental benefits to us as the community.
Thank you. I'll check that out. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'm not seeing raise your hands. Wave your hands if you're trying to talk. I don't see anyone. Elizabeth, am I missing someone who's not on? Okay. So this is where I'm going to say we don't close the public comment. So, and then we'll continue this to our next meeting. We'll take a look at what the planning board has done in their decision and have a further discussion then. Sound good to everyone on the board?
Yeah, do you need a specific motion? I think probably.
To continue, yeah. What are we at, 7:10 on the
Yeah,
17th? Okay.
go for it, Ravi, or I'll happy to do it. I'm got it in front of me, so either one.
Move to continue the application of 13B Commonwealth Avenue LLC for an amendment of a special permanent site plan review under sections 4.2.3 4.2.3.4, 7.7.2.12, 7.7.3.4, 11.6, and 11.8 of the zoning bylaw for a waiver to open space and height requirements for combined business residence and parking layout to allow for tandem parking at 13B Commonwealth Avenue / 50 Barrel Street to December 17th, 2020 at 7:10 p.m.
Second.
Mr. Faya,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Ms. Akers Moore, aye. We'll see you next month.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Welcome.
Great. Okay. Somehow I've lost my agenda here. So that is all of our hearings, and now we're just going on to the zoning bylaw discussion, which I have to say, Elizabeth, I meant to get in touch with you at some point, and the month got away from me, but
No worries.
it's weird how that happens, isn't it? This is scheduled for December 3rd. I forget what date it is. Is it the 14th, 13th? Something like
14th, I believe.
14th. The intention, just trying to coordinate a little more. I do not know what the planning board is up to in terms of what they're looking to, besides the road district. So
Yeah, so I can tell you the planning board is not up to much, which is good. We can take a break.
Right.
They do have a couple of things. They do have a couple of warrant articles, already, they know that they're going to move forward with. One is the 2-family in Residence C, which got postponed from this year's annual town meeting. So that will, be back on the warrant. The other one is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has issued a new model floodplain bylaw, which it's not really a model because they are requiring all communities, if you want to stay in the National Flood Insurance Program, you need to adopt all of the components of this bylaw. If you Concord has adopted many of the components of this new model bylaw, but there are some things in there that we will need to include. Originally, if town meeting was going to be in April like it normally is, the planning board would not move forward with it. There's not enough time between now and the beginning of January to draft that. But with town meeting being rescheduled to June, the planning board is going to try to move forward with that bylaw amendment. We'll see how far I get on the drafting, but that's our goal.
Okay.
Then just the one item that the planning board did want to just have a conversation with the board about, not necessarily having it turn into a bylaw amendment, a warrant article for June, but wanting to start that conversation regarding the floor area ratio bylaw and what the Board of Appeals feels is, is it effective? Is it working? Is it doing anything? Do you see, places where it should be tweaked, amended? And so the planning board just wanted to have that conversation with the Board of Appeals, since I think it's been in place 2 years now, right? 2 years? I think 2 years. Matt?
At least, yeah.
2 years, Matt? 3? 2 or 3? Can't remember.
I think it's been 3. Yeah.
3, yeah.
No, and I don't know if this is something that amid all your other work, how many times we've granted relief from it and how many times we've been asked to grant relief from it, because
I'm sure Heather has that right at her fingertips tomorrow. But
yeah, it doesn't need to.
No, I can only think of 3 times that you've granted one.
And we've even put up to anyone.
One was a dormer, one was a bay window.
Yep.
And I can't remember what the third one was, but
And we denied it a few times.
Right.
Talked with Ray and I about, we'll just go for a waiver or relief. they may have filed for it, but then change their project and don't move forward with it and just bring the application under that limit. So I don't think there's been many, but I'll have Heather before the 14th, just pull together that list of what has been filed and what's been granted.
That would be great.
I don't, this may be a much longer term agenda item, Elizabeth, but I know that in conjunction with the FAR, one of the reasons that it's been well enforced, I suppose, is because of this sort of magic language that is similar to the variance language about, the desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good, without nullifying and substantially degrading, et cetera, et cetera. But it would, the key is involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise. And I know that we've struggled with that language, at some times. So, I mean, in various, one was that height requirement, when it was applied to the height requirement, I think on, what's the name of that street over there in West Concord?
Highland?
Highland, yes. I was thinking of Hubbard, but I knew that was the wrong place. Just in a few times we've just tripped over that language. So I'd love to, at some point, and I don't know that this is the time for it, but I just kind of have it on your agenda to think about that language and, because I think we've struggled with exactly what it means or how to deal with it if we think there is one that is sort of a hardship. But as you recall on Highland Street, the point was that they could have built a house that met the height requirement. It would have just completely been different from the character of the entire rest of the street, in that particular
Right.
situation.
So I think that's the perfect conversation.
Oh,
I'm not hearing you.
I can't hear you, Elizabeth. I don't think you're muted, but. I can't hear you.
I think you said it was a perfect conversation
Yeah,
to have. So
yeah.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
yeah, there you go.
So I do think that's the perfect conversation to have with the planning board about that. And while you were talking, I think the other aspect of that the planning board, and I'll work with Heather on this, is for many of the applications that you see under 7.1.5, and it's not the small projects where they're, it's a 1,000, 1,200 square foot home, and they're going to, a 3,000 square foot home. It's over 50%. It might be on a non-conforming lot, but 3,000 square feet in a neighborhood where they're 4,000 and 5,000 square feet. But there have been some applications where somebody's going, over the 50%, but it's nowhere near coming up against the floor area ratio. But in your meetings and your public hearings, going over the 50% it was just out of scale, out of character with the neighborhood. It was the massing and everything. So, where is that, basically, where's that line where it's like, okay, the floor area ratio did nothing to address, that the whole reason and the mansionization and the neighborhood character. And so where is that line, and in what cases that line, where is it not working and where is it working?
That's kind of what I was getting to. I don't remember a time where I really felt, and maybe I'm forgetting it, where, the FAR really prevented something like what you're talking about. We've talked about little things around the edges, like putting a rec room and a garage and things, but in those cases, you're right, it's always outside. We're like, well, they're fine, they're under the FAR, but all this. So my initial reaction, without kind of looking at it, all the data, is that it hasn't been super effective. Where we go from there, I don't know.
Well, or it's only been effective in deterring people from.
Right, and that's the side I don't
Suggesting
know from you guys who
12 and a
have.
half thousand square foot houses on.
Right, who has talked to you, Elizabeth, and then said, forget it, or talked to you, Ray, you know, how many, right? So
So-
that I don't know.
I mean,
So
it's an
that's
interesting-
some
it's
of the
an interesting-
research, you know, as far as that one. What would Jim?
It's interesting because it's, you know, as we've come to the conclusion, I mean, it's if you're under the FAR, the floor area ratio, it's very tough to stop a more than 50% addition or increase where there's a ton of conforming lots around it, because everybody else can go up and they can go up and they're going to be under the FAR. And so you're sort of stopping somebody from building a modest house, but you know that in 20 years, potentially every house around it's going to look that way. Whereas we were very effective, I think, in stopping it in a place like Chestnut Street, where every other property on that street, it was all non-conforming lots, and every property had basically kept under the 50%. And so to ask, you know, to say to one person, you get to go above that, was really, truly, it was easy to see how that was outside the character. But I do think the FAR is important in not for the ones we see. I suspect it isn't, but it certainly is important for the ones we don't see, because we're not seeing anyone
Right.
trying to go into something. And you can
Which-
imagine on some of these places like, oh, I don't know where, that you could get some pretty stunning houses.
And then the only other two items that just initially come to my mind, and it is just based on, you know, again, it's based on things that, you know, Ray and I deal with or see. And so currently, the planning board is reviewing a project that has significant earth removal. And the town does have an earth removal bylaw that requires a special permit for, there's certain exemptions, but anything over 1,000 cubic yards of removal requires a special permit. But then, you know, as I was talking with Ray, I'd have to go back and check with Marcia about, you know, why and when the earth removal section of the bylaw was put in. Most of the time, zoning bylaw amendments are reactive. So I know there was some issue with earth removal that was taking place on Strawberry Hill Road. And so I was going to check with Marcia and then just do the zoning review on when it was adopted and get, you know, the backstory on why. But what I'm finding is most communities have an earth removal and fill bylaw. So if you have a project that's, you know, wants to remove, you know, 40,000 cubic yards of soil and the impacts of that removal, the same is true if you had a project that had 40,000 cubic yards of fill. So that was something I was just going, you know, that I was going to talk to Marcia about and get some of the history on the earth removal bylaw and why wasn't it an earth removal and fill, because the impacts are the same. Just one's going out and one's coming in. So that was something. And then also currently, you know, a project being reviewed under, you know, for the Groundwater Conservancy District. And if you look through the Groundwater Conservancy District bylaw, it has all of these, you know, prohibited uses, and then it has these uses permitted by special permit. And it's dealing mostly with uses that can contaminate, you know, the groundwater or hazardous materials and those types of things. But there's nothing in there that is a use that could impact the town's water supply. The bylaw is mostly for quality, but not quantity. And there's nothing in there that deals with that impact, even though if you read the purpose of the Groundwater Conservancy District, It specifically talks about quantity, quality, ability for the town to, provide the, citizens of Concord with, clean, reliable, water. So that was also something that I was going to talk to the Public Works Director and the Water and Sewer Superintendent about, because, there's a couple different places in town, for town wells. And it's just, you never know what's going to happen in the future. So, those were just the 4 things on my list. And so I'll turn
Okay.
it over to Ray and see if he has any.
If you covered pretty much everything we've talked about in the past, Elizabeth.
To go back to what you were saying, Jim, about the substantial hardship issue, I feel like a lot of that comes up in these strange height situations, and we always get ourselves bumped into variances. Is there a way for us to build ourselves some flexibility where we're not so uncomfortable with that? I can think of a couple times where we're like, just throw it out there. Is there some flexibility that can be built in general that we're missing?
Well, so the zoning bylaw, so for residential, it already has a waiver provision in there for residential for, yeah.
But remember that one that was, I'll have to, you know what, Elizabeth, I can talk to you offline, because I think there was a couple I can think of that recently where we got away with it. Well, for example, the one on Highland was a variance.
One on Ledge Rock too, just recently.
Was it Ledge Rock? That's the one I think.
He finished his attic, converted to office space.
Yes. We got away with it not being a variance, didn't we? Wasn't there the way?
Well, I think the way the bylaw reads, it's a special permit, not a variance. That's what.
So why was Highland a variance?
That was
because-
a special permit.
No,
No.
Highland was a variance because it was new construction.
No, it wasn't. Was
Yeah,
it?
it was.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was.
Oh, so it wasn't because it wasn't being measured from the existing. It's the Ledge Rock one I'm thinking about too. And then, the whole PRD issue.
Well,
stopped.
so that's the difference. So Ledge Rock was, an existing, was an existing building, the topography and, extension of a, non-conforming structure.
Right.
So that's easier. But also under the zoning bylaw for height, you can grant a waiver to height for residential. The difference with a PRD is that that's a different section of the bylaw.
Mhm.
And in the PRD bylaw, it specifically states a maximum limit of 35 feet. So there is no waiver provision in the PRD bylaw, or there wasn't. There is now with the bylaw amendment that was just passed at town meeting. So there now is a waiver provision in the PRD, but that was the reason why, because if a section of the bylaw is more prohibitive
Right.
than another section, it's the more prohibitive that takes precedence. So that's why that case, but
Right. No, I got to look at the amendment that gave the waiver provision, because I remember us trying to back our way into figuring out how we could give a waiver in that situation. So it sounds like with that amendment that was clarified under the PRD.
yes, it's now included.
Okay, great. Just because that's where I felt most uncomfortable, I think, with these substantial hardship issues. And the other question is, are they not doing anything with Thoreau, proposing anything for Thoreau district then, the planning board?
Oh, no, the Thoreau Depot redevelopment project.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that will have probably at least a year of public input, forums, discussions. There may be some minor thing that comes out of that, that, they can kind of start with, but
Okay.
how that is being developed, it really is moving towards almost its own section for the Thoreau Depot Business District, to allow, a lot of different options. So I won't be advocating for, piecemeal little things to happen, because they are looking at a lot of different aspects of, the combined business residence and, setbacks and, like currently the combined business residence, the commercial and the residential space have to be integral to each other. Well, what's being discussed for the Thoreau Depot business redevelopment project is taking, let's say, like Crosby's, for example, being able to have, commercial up closer to Sudbury Road, and then, in the back, it's a separate building, but have some residential component in the back. And so those are some of the, larger things that are being discussed.
Interesting. Okay. Great. Anything else on this?
Sounds like it could be a fun meeting.
I looked at the numbers for the 6213, the FAR, and there were 7 applications, and 6 of those were approved and 1 was withdrawn.
6 were, but I know we denied one.
Well, we denied the one that was withdrawn was the recreationals.
Oh, was that the Academy Cottage or whatever, Academy Lane?
Yeah, the rec in.
It was 48 Academy Lane.
Okay, so that was withdrawn. Okay.
But I'll have Heather just put together a little table that says, this one was 32 square feet over, this one was, right. and just so you can see that on one sheet.
Many of those are in districts. The other thing is many of them are in districts, right, that everybody was over. I mean, every house in those areas, in that little area of Middle Street and Academy Lane and all that, virtually every house is bigger than
that one was over. The one with Drew was already over, right? So
but I think that, and so some of these, it's like you're adding a dormer or whatever, but it's already something that's already, you got the mass and it's not really changing it.
Well, yeah, but interestingly, we were not going to approve that one, and they were going further. They were already over, so.
Right. No, they had that was a problem. And it was a problem with the people next door. I mean, it was creating shadows and it was doing all the things that you worry about with larger houses.
Right. I just remember thinking, well, if this FAR is supposed to, you'd have to have a really good reason to not go over. Anyway, it could be an interesting discussion. You're right. So that's December 14th. And then the only thing we have left to do is minutes. Heather, I gave you some really minor changes. Anyone else have anything to say on any of the minutes? Mine was just that my name was at the end as clerk, and that there was like a letter that was wrong, and I changed the wording on one thing, but it did not change anything substantive. So if we want to go ahead and approve those.
Move approval.
Second.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Faya.
Aye.
Ms. Akers-Moore, aye. And the only thing is that we were talking about, Ray, at the beginning was the Barrett's Mill, which, will you give us an update on that maybe next time, Elizabeth? Oh, sorry.
I will give you an update as far as what the senior planners discussion is with the Historical Commission.
Yes, that's great. They tore down the whole house, and I know that we said that we were okay with it, but reading back over the minutes, it was really like the roof we were okay with. The entire house is gone. It's just the facade. Yeah. So I can't remember because I didn't listen to the whole meeting again, but reading those minutes made me realize that we really did not approve that. We were okay with, I think, unless there's something else in that meeting that I'm forgetting.
It was the roof and the back wall, because they are adding an addition.
Whole thing,
but
literally just the front facade is left. Everything else is gone.
Yeah, I don't think there was the understanding that every single board and floor in the house.
Which one is this?
Barrett's Mill, what numbers?
The corner of Barrett's Mill and
762
College.
The double house.
Remember that really old revolutionary
family.
The two
Barrett's
family
Mill.
was,
Is this the one that was the 2-family and then it was a single family and now it's a 2-family again?
Right.
Yeah, I didn't understand that either.
It is one wall and then another facade, like it's the two facades propped up every single thing else, including the basement, gone. I mean, I watched them take all those beams out of there. It was like, all right. So anyway, Elizabeth and I were talking about it because it sounds like the historical commission is not too happy. So I was just curious to get an update on that. Being reminded when I read the minutes that we didn't approve that, which honestly kind of bugs me, but you know. All right, so leaving it there. Anyone have anything else? All right, great. Well, thank you all, and we'll see you in December.
Twice.
See you in December twice. You're welcome. Thanks.
All right. Take care,
Talk to you
everyone.
later. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks.